Hello, you are listening to Cali Chats, a healthy living podcast with a goal of helping you find true happiness within your mind, body, and soul. I'm Jessie Cali, and it is time to get real. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Cali Chats. I hope you guys have had a great start to the week, and I hope you had a great last week. I am here today to talk to you guys about my first ever solo trip that was taken solely just for me. Not for work, not with anyone else, just me, myself, and I. I thought it'd be super fun just to literally walk through it because if you follow me on Instagram, you may have already seen that I went to Disney World, Universal, Orlando, Florida, and hung out there for the last week because one, I have an annual pass, so I was able to get in, obviously. But two, I really wanted to get down there and just relax and refresh. And so I went. I've always been super independent. Like, ask anyone. INDEPENDENTU. Know what that means? That's me. I just started singing a song. But yes, I have always been a very independent person. But I had never traveled for the sake of just traveling solo. Like, I had done a day trip here or there, but I had never just booked a whole week's vacation, just me. I guess it never really dawned on me. I did see a couple friends in the last couple years take some different trips to, Europe or to Mexico and different things alone, and I was always very envious. So this was my dipping my toe into the water of solo travel, and let me tell you, there is something incredibly freeing about traveling and exploring alone. I had so much fun. So if I can get you guys to do anything by the end of this podcast, I hope you start researching and booking your first solo trip. So here's the thing about me. I am what one would call a spontaneous traveler. I don't really love to have a list of plans and a list of things to do because if I don't get to check everything off of that list, I get very frustrated. So I always have been more of a let's go with the flow kind of person. I have an outline of a trip, aka I want to go to this place, I'm staying at this hotel, and I have tickets to this. That is my plans when I go on vacations. Now, I feel like there's other people on the other side of the spectrum that have to plan, and I get very stressed out by that. So my plans for this solo trip were literally Disney World, Universal, and I had the hotels. That was literally it. I had no ideas about restaurants. I had no ideas about anything really other than the fact that I knew I had a place to sleep and I knew I had some fun places to go during the day. And in true spontaneous form, how do you think my vacation started? If you've watched my story on Instagram, you have seen the nightmare of a first night that I had. But if not, I'm going to explain it here on the podcast, and you can go check it out on Cali Creates LLC Instagram. I still have it as a highlight on my travel story, so feel free to check it out. So I get to the hotel. I was staying in the DoubleTree at the entrance of the Universal Studios, Orlando. And I was super excited to be at that hotel. I'd never been there before. It was walking distance, and that to me was prime spot. So I get there. I've been driving all day. I believe it was a 7 or 8 hour drive. And I'm rolling my suitcase on the pavement, getting into the hotel. And there's all these people around because, as you can imagine, it's Universal Orlando. So obviously there are tons of people. Anyway, I'm rolling my suitcase. I'm right at the entrance. That area where people drive their car in and they wait to get the bellhop person comes and gets your stuff or whatever. So that's where I was. I was rolling right there, right where all the cars come. And I see this man staring at me. And I'm like, okay, what is he looking at? I mean, I don't look great right now. I mean, I don't think I look great. So I'm just like, what does he want? And then I notice he's looking down. And I'm like, what is he looking at? And I start looking down and oh my God. Literally, my suitcase, and this is a big suitcase, guys, has busted open. It just busts open all over the place. And this man goes, oh no. And I go, oh no. So he's like, okay, let's just like put her down. Okay. So he helps me like put my suitcase on the ground. And so I open it. I'm mortified. And I start throwing all my things back into my bag. And I'm telling you guys, like all my, like, you know, my undergarments were in there. And like all my things are like falling out. And so I'm just throwing things back in. And mind you, I also have another bag that was tied on the top of this that had some other things in it. And so I'm worried about that stuff. So it was insane. So I'm stuffing all the stuff back in there, and this guy goes, you have a lot of nice things in there. And I'm just like, what? No, we're not complimenting me right now. This is, no, this is tragic. Let me live in my tragic moment. That's where I need to be. So I continue. I keep putting everything in. Then another man, a man that worked for the hotel, comes running. And I'm talking, guys. This is not me just like making this. He ran at me. He ran at me and this man. And he goes, I got a cart. So he runs over and he brings a cart. And then they both are just like picking my stuff up together, putting it on this cart. Meanwhile, the other guy's holding my Yeti because I had a cup of water at the time. And just stress, lots of stress. So as they're picking up the bag, a Bud Light seltzer falls out of my bag. It just rolls on the pavement. I'm like, is this how my week is gonna go? My first ever solo trip, and I'm just literally busting at the seams. Lo and behold, I get my Yeti back from the man. I thank him for his kind words and his nice gestures, and I move on. The other guy who worked for the hotel, he helps me all the way up to my room because I needed someone to. And it was tragic. So we get all the way up there, we get inside, and he's just like, oh, hey, you know, we could hang out if you want. Like, I would totally hang out if we could, but, you know, I'm on the clock, but I can't right now. You know, I'm just like sitting there like, what is happening to me? Is there like a full moon? What is going on? Why are all these people around me? And why are... It was just, it was a lot. Oh, and I forgot to mention that as we were walking in, the other guy from earlier had been like, hey, meet you at the bar later, huh? I'm like, oh no. Is this the type of like image that I have plastered on me right now? Is like, hang out with me. I'm like, no. So my solo trip is for me to refresh, relax, and be alone. So I just found it very funny that out of nowhere, all these things are happening that are making me have to interact with people. Safe to say, that was a fun start to the trip. I was very, very nervous that was going to be the first sign of tragedy and what was going to be a tragic trip. But luckily, nothing really crazy happened after that. That was the one tragic component to my trip. And I hope maybe that could have given you a little bit of a laugh today with whatever you are dealing with at work or while you're listening to this podcast. I don't know what's going on in your life, but I hope that my tragedy has brought you some joy. All right, so let's get back on track. Back to the first solo trip, back to the story. I really want to give you guys some reasons why I loved it, and then I'll end it off with some Universal, Orlando, and Disney tips for anyone that is maybe curious about getting down there right now while we are still living in this weird COVID world. So here we are, reasons I loved it. And honestly, I don't have any reasons why I didn't like it. I loved it all. Like, I am not even kidding you. I loved every second of my solo trip. One of the biggest reasons I loved it is there's no timetables. You are the only person that decides what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. It's just you. And the greatest thing about that is that you don't feel bad if you don't hit everything that day, or you don't feel bad if you don't get to do something that someone else want to do, because it's literally just what you want to do. And you make those decisions for you. So that was so great. I had so much fun with that, especially at a theme park, Because I don't know if you guys have been to a theme park with your family, but my family is wildin', okay? We all like different things. We all have different ideas and plans of what we want to do. And you don't want to just like split off. You want to hang out with everyone. So you end up going so many different directions. Someone's crying, someone's upset, someone's hot. And when you're alone, you make all those decisions for yourself. I loved it. You can truly do whatever you want. And then the best part too, oh my gosh, I was telling Rachel about this after the second night. When you are tired, guess what? You can just go to sleep. Isn't that amazing? It's kind of weird, right? Like, it's silly for me to say that, but how many times have you been on a trip with someone and they wake you up early, or they are keeping you up at night, or you feel bad that you want to go to sleep because they clearly want to go do something? You know what I mean? You don't feel like that when you're on a solo trip because you're just like, I'm tired. Maybe you wanted to get dinner that night, but then you realize you're really exhausted and tired. Guess what? You go to sleep. So that was really freeing. The fact that like I was in control of every single thing about this trip. And I also got to make the choices if I wanted to do anything or not. I was in a very nice resort and I was fine with just staying in it for some of the day, you know, like just hanging out in my room or going to the pool, or I didn't have to be going all the time. And then the last point of why I really loved it was you can really take time to look at your life and just think clearly. There's nothing else to cloud your judgment. There's nothing else to cloud your thoughts. It's just you and your feelings and your life, and you get to look at it and dig into it. That was definitely one of the best parts. I went by the pool the first day. I was waiting for my room in Disney to get ready, and I just was laying there with, you know, my bathing suit on. I was chilling, and there was all these families around, and it was all very distanced. But it was just me. And the nicest thing about it is I'm sure there was other people around me being like, what is this girl doing? She's alone. But I loved it. I loved that I wasn't wondering about any of them. I couldn't have cared less, you know? I was just there for me. And I was truly there to make sure that I'm putting my mental health first, my spirit first, my health first, everything solely for me. And that was just super empowering. Gosh, I just want to go back like right now. But if you take moments in your days every day to just do something truly for you, that's something I learned about this trip too, is I don't have to go to Orlando, Florida to do something just strictly for me. That's what self-love and self-care is all about, is making conscious efforts to make some part of your day truly just for you. A lot of times we get so busy with work and with other people and helping and all of this that we forget to help ourselves. So don't do that. I want you to make sure from here on out to take time in your day. Maybe it's an hour in the morning for, you know, meditation or prayer time or just reading a book, whatever you want to do with that hour. Take that hour for yourself and you will be forever thankful. I promise. So that's my biggest takeaway from the trip, from all the reasons why I loved it, is I can take time like that every single day to do something just for me. And I'm going to do that. It may not be the same every day. It may not always be just quiet time or whatever for an hour. Maybe I go on a hike. Maybe I go to the park. Maybe I do whatever I want to do just for me that day. And I hope that you do the same. I really do. I hope that you do the same. And maybe you go on a trip too. The trip is definitely fun though, okay? Like definitely go on the trip too. Gosh. Okay. Moving on. Okay. So I'm going to end this off with some Disney and Universal tips for anyone who may be thinking about traveling down there right now during these times. So first things first, let's talk about crowd control. I know everyone wants to know everything about crowds and what it's looking like spacing-wise, so I wanted to start there. So Disney definitely, in my opinion, felt much more spaced out. Like I felt like they had a lock on this COVID procedures and they just had it more figured out than Universal. That may just be my perspective, but I just felt like Universal was a bit more crowded feeling than Disney. They both had the 6 feet apart lines, so the lines look incredibly long, but they are not. They feel a lot longer than they are because you were just standing out in the park, but it's because everything has to be spaced out 6 feet apart. So keep that in mind. If you're looking to travel with a family and you have like a bigger crowd, I will say Disney would be my choice just because it does seem like they've had more of this figured out and it's much more easier to understand versus Universal. It was more crowded. So I just wanted to get that out. Next thing I wanted to talk about is transportation. Mostly I'm just going to be talking about that from a Disney perspective because Universal, I literally walked there. Because my hotel was literally right across the street. So Disney, I will say the trams are not working right now. So everyone that is used to like parking and then getting on a tram and getting right to the entrance, that's no longer a thing right now. They are not running during the COVID times. Right now, if you park and you park your car, you have to walk the entire way to the park and the entire way back to your car. So it is a trek, but if you're someone like me and you don't mind that, totally okay. They do have all the other transportation for Disney running. So the Skyliner is working, the ferry is working, and the monorail is working. Currently, the Epcot monorail is not working, but the other one is. So if that's something that you're interested in using, the buses, all of that's running right now. The only thing that is not is the trams and the monorail to Epcot. And then last, I wanted to talk about just some of the procedures of getting into the parks. So with Disney, you walk up and you get your temperature taken and then you continue to walk, and they have these new fancy bag machine things that it's literally just kind of like what a metal detector looks like, but it has no top to it. And you just walk right through it. So you don't have to take your bag off. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to take anything out of your pockets. You just walk through these sensor things, like no stopping. And they'll point at you and point you over if you have a bag. And if the sensor sends something, then they give you to that person. And that person checks your bag. And then you're done. Then you get to the area where you would actually check in with your magic band or your ticket or whatever. And you just do your magic band and you continue. So there's no fingerprint right now, which I love because I don't want to touch that during these COVID times. So yeah, it's pretty easy to get in there. Of course, everyone has to wear a mask. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to wear a mask to get into any of these parks. So do not be any of these like anti-maskers, okay? You have to wear a mask if you want to go to the theme park. And anywhere else, okay? Wear your mask. Continuing on. Universal was also very simple to get through. It was a very similar process. You just got your temperature taken, then you continued, then you got your ticket scanned, and you continued. So there was no fingerprinting there as well. And I don't know if things will change with that over time, given whatever new news comes out. But as of now, that's the procedures of getting into the parks. And then once you're in the parks, everything is fairly normal as it normally would be. I think the only differences that I noticed is that occasionally you'll see some rides that say closed or temporarily closed, and that just means they're cleaning them because they are taking time, ever so many hours. I don't know how many hours, but ever so many hours, they are taking time to sanitize and clean all of the rides at different times. So they'll close them so that they can clean them before you go on them. So keep in mind, if you do see on the app that something's closed, it may be open an hour. Just keep looking. And make sure you have the apps. Make sure you have the apps if you are going to these parks because they don't have the paper maps right now. And if they do have them, you probably shouldn't get them anyways because you don't know who's been touching them. So just get the apps and scan the little thing and you can like see everything. I didn't even have to scan anything because I always have the apps. So all of those are my biggest tips on going to the parks. Make sure to stay safe if you're going. Bring your sanitizer and you'll be good to go. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have gone a couple times now, so I have some good feedback from different things. I hope you learned something today, and I hope that you now decided that maybe you want to take a solo trip. I would love to take another one soon. I'm looking into it right now, so I hope that you all do the same. And without further ado, we are done with this podcast. So thank you guys for listening to another Cali Chats episode. I will be with you next week, and I love y'all. And until next time, bye-bye. enjoyed this podcast, please like, rate, review, and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or pretty much anywhere you can listen to a podcast. For more from me and Cali Chats, visit www.calicreates.com. Or you can check me out on Facebook and Instagram at Cali Creates LLC. Thanks, and talk to you guys later. Bye.